Okay. Hey, good morning. Thanks for being here today. I'm Chief Safety and Security Officer Pat Warren, and I'm joined here today by MTA's Acting Chief of Police, Joe McGran. The reason we're here today is simple. It's to remind customers of the importance of wearing masks to mitigate chances of catching the COVID virus, and to remind riders of the long-standing mask policy while within our transportation system. When as a community we achieve 100% mask compliance, we are protecting ourselves and demonstrating our concern and respect for the health of one another. This is especially important as more and more customers return to the system. Since Labor Day, it seems like every day we've been breaking ridership records. The high point was breaking the 3 million person rider mark this last week in the subway system. To keep moving New York City forward safely, we need everyone to do their part and mask up. We know this is what our customers want. They told us that they feel safer when they see their fellow customers wearing masks. It's the ultimate sign of respect. We hear them loud and clear, and we're going to do everything we can to increase usage. This policy is not optional, it's a government mandate. Riders are required by federal and state law to wear masks when they're traveling at all indoor stations, onboard buses, trains, and paratransit vehicles. Whether you're vaccinated or not, which is very important. And if you don't mask up, you should not be surprised when you have to pay up. Customers who refuse to put on a mask may receive a $50 fine. While the fine has been in place since last fall, we began ramping up enforcement on September 7th to drive compliance that includes stationing MTA police and staff at strategic subway, railroad hubs, and bus terminals to meet workers heading back to the office and students coming to school for the first time in person. So far, the mask blitz has shown success. In just 3 weeks, the MTA Police Department has given out more than 25,000 masks, while members of the MTA's volunteer mask force have personally distributed over 800,000 masks to date. We're going to keep going full steam ahead to drive those numbers even higher. I'll remind customers that free masks can be found at all MTA stations, on board our commuter trains, and on most buses. So there's no excuse to ride without a mask. Right now, our mask usage rates are just okay, 94% on buses, 87% on subways, and in the low 90% on our railroads. We can and must do better if we're going to beat the virus. The pandemic is testing our resolve, but if we don't break it won't break the spirit or desire to keep each other safe. New Yorkers are tough and smart. We know what to do, and that includes wearing masks. Now, let me turn it over to my partner, Joe McGran. Chief.
Thank you, Pat. As you just heard, we'll be stepping up our mask enforcement efforts on the commuter rails in the weeks ahead, working closely with our partners at the NYPD for the subway and bus systems as necessary. I want to make it clear that we just want you to wear a mask, and we're happy to provide one if you forget yours at home. But make no mistake, if you refuse, you can expect to face a $50 fine. Thankfully, most New Yorkers recognize their responsibility here to do the right thing. Since the mask fine was first introduced last September, MTA PD officers have had more than 88,000 positive encounters with our customers. And you heard Pat say that in just the last 3 weeks alone, we've given out more than 25,000 masks. This is great news. In a post-COVID transit system, wearing a face mask is the ultimate sign of respect. It shows your commitment to protecting not only your own health, but that of our fellow riders and our other workers. Aside from that, it is required by state law. We want the transit system to be as safe as possible. I am grateful to be part of the dedicated team of men and women who are committed to accomplishing that mission. And now I'll turn it back over to Pat.
Thanks, Chief. So at this point, we'll go ahead and take any questions if there are some.
Thank you. Pat, Is it fair to say that as ridership is going up, compliance is going down?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that recently we've seen compliance going up. What we saw over the last year was a huge response by the riders of New York, where we had somewhere between 98 and 100% compliance on the different systems out there. As the system, as the COVID started to look better, as the virus looked like we were starting to beat it at the beginning of the summer, we started to see a decrease in compliance on our systems. Just recently, as was just stated, through our efforts, our mask enforcement efforts, that we've started to see it climb back up again.
Well, you said 87% on the subways, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Why isn't 87% good?
It's good, but it's not great, and we want to move up to 100%.
We've seen confrontations in various places regarding masks. If a rider sees someone without a mask, they want them to wear a mask. What do you suggest?
So, first of all, riders should not get into confrontations with other riders. That's something for the police and other security forces to do. If they do see someone who is not wearing a mask, they have a couple of options. One is that they can go onto our MTA application, My MTA, and there's a place where they can put in customer information, complaints, such as it is, and tell us what's going on. The other thing is as they go to a station and they see a police officer or some other security agent, or walk up to the booth and register their complaint at that time.
How concerned, if at all, are you about customers jawing back and forth about this?
So this is New York, and lots of people have opinions and like to talk about, whatever the topic is. Could be their favorite baseball team. That being said, we do not want people to get in confrontations with other individuals on any topic, as particularly one that could turn volatile.
Other questions? Yeah, Jose, right there, Jose.
Thank you. Hi, Pat. On September 6th, it was, that we reported in the city that there had been 0 summonses issued in the subway for the month of August, and I think there had been several months where there had been 0 summonses issued. When you say that enforcement has stepped up, and you have representatives from MTA PD for the commuter rails today, can you give us any numbers for actual summonses given out since then?
So, as I stated a little bit a minute ago, for the last year we've seen great compliance by the city, 98 to 100% on the different systems out there. So it did not necessitate the use of summonses. Very few were handed out over the year because there were very few people that actually did not comply with the rules, which, by the way, our goal is not to hand out summonses. Our goal is to get people to wear their masks. What we've, for the last couple of weeks that we've talked about since September 7th, we've stepped up handing out masks to remind our customers about the need to use masks, the requirement, the law to continue to use masks. At this point, as we move forward, we're going to start handing out summonses more frequently if, in fact, people do not comply. We fully expect people to comply going forward, but we're just putting people on fair notice that if you choose not to comply, you may get a summons.
September 7th.
She's got it for you. Amanda's handing it out.
Okay. All right. Are masks still required outside on platforms?
Masks are not required on outdoor station platforms. They are required in every indoor station. They're required inside every subway and commuter rail train. They're required in buses, clearly, and in paratransit vehicles.
Police, but at what point would you give somebody a summons versus a $50 fine or just a warning?
So, and I'll certainly let the chief weigh in here, but in general, there's always a call. The officer on the scene has to make a call about what's going on. But in general, so if they're requested not and handed the mask and they refuse to wear a mask, or they immediately take it off afterwards, some kind of recalcitrant behavior, you're probably going to receive a summons. Chief, I don't know if there's something else.
We do give the officers the discretion, depending upon the circumstances, but for the most part, people will comply when an officer comes up and asks them to put the mask on. And again, if they don't have one, we happily supply them with one. It's going to be that very rare individual, and they exist, who's going to be a little bit more recalcitrant or hesitant to put the mask on. In a situation such like that, we will take them off the system, we will issue them the summons, and we'll send them on their way.
Other question? Yeah, Kevin.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I think I have a question for Chief McGann, but if Pat, if you want to chime in afterwards, please feel free. My first question is, do you have a current vaccination rate among your force? I know it's usually wrapped into MTA HQ, but I was just wondering if you could break that out.
We strongly encourage all of our officers to get the vaccination. I don't have a current rate for you, but we strongly encourage it. If they're not going to do that, we have a program in place similar to other programs where they're going to have to get weekly tested. We also insist that they wear the mask at all time when in public view. But for the most part, most of our officers are pretty much amenable to getting the vaccine when they see fit. I would say that there's going to be a handful, as there are a handful of people in the public, that probably will resist it and go to that weekly testing system. But I think those are going to be few and far between.
So, just to pile on, vaccinations are the keys to success to beat this virus for the MTA, for the city, for the nation, right? So we encourage everybody to get vaccinated. We're here also to talk about the fact that the second best thing you can do is wear a mask, particularly because it's a requirement in the subway system. So vaccinations is number one in our program. We've probably done more than most organizations in trying to get our workforce vaccinated. You probably know a lot that we've done, and we continue to push that every day, and we will strive to until we get to a level that we feel that that you get to the folks that can't do it because of medical or religious reasons. And once we get to that level, then that's when we'll lay off the pressure.
All right. And my second question for the chief is, there has been a lot of pictures by people on social media, riders of police not wearing masks or not wearing them correctly. And I realize a lot of that is NYPD, but some is also your force. Why do you think that still persists, and what are you doing to address that?
My officers are also members of the public. My officers also make mistakes. My officers receive discipline when it's appropriate. In fact, in the past few weeks alone, I've given out discipline to 2 supervisors and 8 police officers for failure to wear the mask appropriately in public situations.